And now I am thrilled to introduce our distinguished speakers, Charles Robinson and Rick Parker. Charles Robinson is the Acting Director of the Personal Property Management Division with the U.S. General Services Administration in Washington, D.C. He has been with GSA and the Personal Property Program for the last 34 years and has oversight responsibility for promoting the reuse of excess personal property by federal agencies, donating surplus personal property to public agencies and eligible nonprofit organizations, and offering surplus personal property for sale to the general public. He is joined by Rick Parker, who is Chief of Utilization and Donation Program at NCR Zone Federal Acquisition Services, Office of Personal Property Management Division at GSA. As a servant leader, he leads a team that is responsible for providing disposable solutions to federal agencies in the Washington metropolitan area. Please feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation in the Q&A box, not the chat box, Q&A. That can be found in your Zoom toolbar. We will also have time at the end for more Q&A. The slides and the video recording from today's webinar will be emailed to you following today's presentation. And as you can tell from the introductions, you are in excellent hands today. And I'm thrilled that Charles and Rick are here to join us. And I'm going to turn it over to you now. Welcome to VIP, and thank you so much for joining us today. Charles, I think you're on mute.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And good to see you, Rick. And do you want to see if we can share your slides?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks again for having us. Miss Ash and Aaron, we're happy to be here. And so at this time, I'd like to share my screen.
Okay. I'll let you know when I can see it. Oh, looks great. You're in.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So again, thank you for having us. Again, my name is Charles Robinson, and Rick Parker will be here to assist me with this presentation. We just like to say thank you again for your service, and we wish you the best as you develop your businesses as a veteran-owned small business. Today, we're going to talk about primarily the federal surplus personal property donation program that GSA administers. And what I'll do is go to the next slide. Okay. How do I advance my slides here?
You might have an arrow button. You can hit the down button.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. Got it. Looks good.
So what we're going to do is we're going to give you an overview of the donation program. We're going to highlight the Veteran-Owned Small Business Program, MOA. That's a Memorandum of Understanding or Memorandum of Agreement that GSA, SBA, and the state agencies for surplus property have. So I'll highlight those for you. Those are very key points that I'd like to share with you. Rick is going to provide us with a demo on how to screen available property using our GSA Access website. And then we'll be happy to entertain any questions you have following the presentation. You can also, as Ms. Ash mentioned, put your questions in the, which box was that again? The chat box? Q&A box.
Yeah, you can use the chat, but we'll be monitoring the both, but the Q&A is where you'd want to put questions for you and Rick to respond to. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to, at this time, turn it over to our Chief of the Utilization and Donation Branch, Rick Parker, and he's going to give you an overview of the donation program. I'll come back, highlight the Veteran-Owned Small Business Program and MOA that we have with the state agencies along with the Small Business Administration. And then Rick will come back and give you a demo of our system to that allows you to screen available personal property.
Okay. Well, good afternoon again. I just want to give you kind of an overview of the federal donation program. The way it normally works is when the agency no longer have a need for personal property, they conduct what they call an internal screening to check within their own agency and see if anyone can use it. At the completion of the screening for federal use, the property is declared surplus. And on average, the property is screened for a period of 21 calendar days for most items. We do have items like furniture that is only screened for 14 days before it becomes surplus. Items such as vessels, both DOD and civilian vessels, they are screened on average 60 days, and aircraft 60 days. But sometimes those screening periods for federal users are extended. When the property is declared surplus, organizations such as the Veteran Small Business Organizations can compete for that property. Property is donated from GSA to state, local, and nonprofit organization. Through an organization, we group them all as state agencies. You would probably hear us say SASPs for the acronym. But there's a state agency for surplus property represented located in all 50 states and the 6 territories. Next slide, Charles. So the law for this particular federal donation program authority is 40 USC 549 that states in part that the administrative GSA can, with his or her discretion under regulations, may prescribe and may transfer property to a state agency. The term state agency means an agency designated under state law as an agency responsible for fair and equitable distribution through the donation of property transfer under this section. Next slide. So the requirement, the term surplus property means excess personal property no longer required by the federal agency as determined by GSA. GSA allocate the property among the states on a fair and equitable basis. Allocation factors include extraordinary needs caused by a disaster, emergency situation. And you'll see when I show you how to search for property that you can actually go in and choose a priority when you're competing for property. Donation performance. Some of the state agency maintains warehouses where they actually take the property into their warehouse and make it available to all eligible donees. And some agencies do not maintain warehouses. It's direct donation, which means they will prepare the proper paperwork to allow the donee to actually go to the site, the own an agency site, to remove property. I'm using the term donees because you all could qualify as donees, the term that we use for eligible organization who can receive property through the state agency under the federal donation program. So again, the allocation factor includes a letter of justification. You could have an urgent need for a piece of equipment or a piece of property. So what you would do, you'll submit first a letter to the state agency. The state agency in turn will send that letter or request to a GSA representative who's doing the allocation, so they can probably make a judgment to say, hey, we have a strong justification, so we must give this property to this particular donee. There's competition amongst donees for highly desirable property, but there's allocation factors included. Sometimes it's based on these requirements here. Other times it's based on the population and per capita income in the state. So if you're competing for an item, you may not get it every time you go in and choose a piece. There's competition, again, amongst states and their donees competing for highly desirable items, and some of these items may include motor vehicles, boats, vessels, construction type of equipment like graders. So there's a competition for that type of item. Next slide, Charles. So organizations that are eligible recipients that you see listed here: public agencies, nonprofit public programs that support the elderly and the impoverished, veterans organizations, small business AA contractors organizations, veteran-owned small businesses. The Small Business Administration, GSA, have implemented the Veteran Small Business Enhancement Act of 2018. Public airports. The next one, Charles. Nonprofit education for public health, medical institutions, hospitals, clinics, drug, alcohol abuse treatment centers, provide assistance to the homeless and impoverished, schools, colleges, universities, schools that support students with disability, child care, radio and television station licensed by a Federal Communication Commission as an educational radio, educational television station, museums attended by the public, libraries they serves all residents of community, district, state, or for a region free of charge, and historical license. I'm sharing this information with you so you can go back and share this information with folks in your community. But I know the main focus is veterans, small business today. So I just wanted to go through this so you can share additional information with other folks in your community. Next slide, please, Charles.
Rick, as we go to the next slide, there was a question in the chat box.
Okay, let me see.
And I was wondering, the question was, is there a specific set aside for service disabled veteran-owned small businesses, or are veteran-owned small businesses considered in the same cohort?
They are considered in the same cohort.
Okay.
Again, you'll be competing for property. When I say competing, I'm going to show you the website. I'm going to show you how to create a want list. You have to build a strong relationship with the state agency for surplus property program manager in your state. Because sometimes you could just send them an email and say, I'm looking for these things for my business. But when it gets out there, there's no guarantee that you will receive it. There's allocation factors. In some cases, because there may be an abundance of a certain category of property, it will be on first come, first serve. So, but in many cases, you'll be competing for with all these other organizations that I mentioned will be competing for a highly desirable piece of equipment. So all organizations would be in competition basically. But in some cases, you may be looking for, just as a startup, you may be looking for maybe some computers, maybe office furniture, a desk, a chair, file cabinets to set up your office. Those things are probably first come, first serve. However, if you're looking for a front end loader, you're looking for a truck or a vehicle, you will have to compete for that because those are considered highly desirable items. There could be an abundance of tools or generators and things of that nature. We do support service educational activities. However, these organizations that you see listed here, like the American Red Cross, U.S. Naval Sea Cadet, the Young Marines, Boys and Girls Clubs, Scouts of America, they can only receive property that DOD generates or turn in as surplus. Next slide, Charles. So the way it works is pretty much is that, we transfer the property to the state agency. They have a responsibility for a utilization reviews to ensure property being used. They also have to report any non-compliance with the donation terms and condition. They would promptly invest in if anyone failed to comply, they wouldn't do an investigation. They would temporarily defer any donation of property to that organization. They would take steps to correct the non-compliance or otherwise enforce a condition imposed on the use of property if a donee is found to be in non-compliance. Non-compliance is basically, in general, is that you acquire a piece of property, you don't use it for your intended official business, you use it for things outside the scope of your business. You know, for example, if you're able to obtain a box truck, you got a moving business, you know, your business is moving. So if you want to, you know, you're using that truck to move for your business. However, you loan it to, you know, brother Joe or sister Jane so they can move their household stuff, you'll be in non-compliance. So that's one of the things about non-compliance. It's got to be. Go ahead. There's a question. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I was going to.
No, you can, because we want to have a conversation. We just don't want to speak. So you had a question in the chat?
Yeah, there was. And you have to remember now the community we serve, you know, are government contractors that are veteran owned. Of course, they have a broader community. So I'm glad they're learning that it's, you know, available to others in case they can't participate in this, you know, opportunity. But of course, their mind goes to bidding and competition.
Yes, I see.
Yeah, so we want to clarify your terms. So, you know, they're thinking on bid. So bid is, my understanding from what you've said so far, bidding is really making a case that you have a higher purpose than someone else. It's not about you saying, I'll give you $100 and someone else says, I'll give you 150.
Right. It's not acquisition. When I say that you can submit a request for an item, you may have an urgent emergency need for that piece of equipment, and you want GSA to consider it in the process of allocation. That's what I'm saying. When you submit that letter, a justification, have an urgent need, the GSA allocator will consider it when they allocate the property.
So in government contracting terms, you have to make a compelling case. It's like
in government contract terms, with bidding is dealing with if you acquisition, you trying to purchase something or you're trying to offer your services, so you submitting a price but in this case, this property is I won't say the property is free because Charles is going to talk about the MOU. The property is basically what it says basically is donated to you. You'll be under compliance for a year, some cases 18 months, in some cases the property will have to be returned back to the state agency, certain categories of property. But for the most part, when you acquire federal surplus property through a state agency, you have a year to put it into use and continue using it for a period of a year before title is passed. That's for most property. In some cases could be 18 years. Some cases, as Aaron listed, it could be 5 years based on the property itself. Okay. So, and there is a fee associated with it. It's administrative fee. They call it as a service charge, and that's based on the condition of the property and the original acquisition cost of the property. So Aaron is asking, is there a mentorship provided? The state agency, most of them should provide you with some type of, I would say, training on the terms and the condition of acquiring the property, or training we can provide you, but the state agency knows too, training on how to use the system, understanding the system. So I would answer that question, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying. It's great. And it's good to know that they're competing and being compelling, not competing on price.
You're not competing on price. You're just competing. For example, if we put a truck out there, for the first 21 days, you may have federal agencies competing for it. Although you can request it at the same time, but we won't be able to allocate it to your organization or your group until the surplus release date, which is after the 21 days. So you actually be, like I said, you'll be competing for it, But some cases you see that truck, it may be gone. A federal agency may take it, which includes a DOD activity can take it. But once it gets to the surplus date, there could be 5 states competing for that one truck. There could be 15 donees asking for that same vehicles, and GSA allocator is going to look at all the factors and say, decide who gets it, because generally a truck is a highly desirable piece of equipment.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so you can ask the question as we go along, and because I mean, this is a conversation. I'm not a professional speaker. I'm a servant leader. So my goal is, and I'm sure Charles' goal is the same. We want to see people get this property that can really use it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Well,
we don't want to get to the stage where we offer it for public sale, or get to a point where we have to recycle it or put it in the landfill. Our goal has always has been, let's give it away before we try to sell it or recycle it.
Thank
So
you.
next slide, Charles. So the federal donation donee's responsibility is that you meet and maintain your eligibility. That's basically you understand the term and the condition of acquiring property, and that you don't be abusing your responsibility and become non-compliant. You have to pay, again, a service charge if applicable. There could be some states like DC government, for example, they don't charge a service fee. You know, most of their public agency can receive property at the federal level. So they're eligible small business and veteran-owned small business. They would not charge a service fee. However, before they approve your eligibility application, they're gonna meet with you. They want to see your facilities. They want you to provide, if you don't have a brochure, some type of written narrative about your organization. And of course, you have to be, certified through the VA. So they're gonna meet with you and visit your site, and then they're gonna approve your applications. But some state agency is probably going to assess a service charge, and this is administrative fee for them. They use this to do compliance checks. Sometimes they may do with this COVID environment, they may do a virtual compliance check, or they may want to visit your site. It depends on the type of property that you receive to make sure that you are staying in compliance with the terms and conditions. You pay for the shipping, handling, or transportation costs from picking up the property. You have 1 year in general to put the property into use. You have to use it for a full period of compliance, 1 year, and I say sometimes it could be 18 months, sometimes it could be 5 years. Title passes once the restrictions are met. Next slide, please.
Rick, I have a quick question
Sure.
from Michael Schuler. He engaged with this Texas state agency once, and the fee they charged exceeded the value of the item. And I would say, Michael, and Rick can chime in, but I would say in a way, by way of comment, that this should not actually happen. The service fee should only be a small percentage of the value of that property. And their state plan of operation usually includes how they come up with their service fees. And so their service fees should be in accordance with their state plan of operation, should only be a small percentage of the value of that item. Usually they use the acquisition cost. If they don't have an acquisition cost, they use a fair market value. So it really should be, yeah, and perhaps it wasn't the GSA's outlet. So yeah, we should have been, if there was some discrepancy, we probably should have involved GSA, and maybe GSA would have helped to maybe resolve that issue. But a lot of times, I guess you probably didn't find out until later. But yeah, that service charge should only be a small percentage of the value of the property that was donated.
And just add a few comments. I've seen where donees are actually, it could be described wrong in the offering. When you go to the website to select it, you might see a pretty picture of an item, a description of an item saying this is go back one, Charles. But you could see that the item itself appears to be in say great condition, but when you actually receive the item, you have to put a lot of work and money into it to get it operable. So if you ever come across a case where you think that the service charge is too high, meet with the state agency rep and say, provide them with pictures and videos or whatever it would take to say, hey, I think your fee is too high. We had because we have a personal property center warehouse in Springfield, Virginia. We did a virtual screening of the furniture that we had at the warehouse. And we had a person that came down from, she was a person that had a program to teach young adults how to use a computer. So she came down, she's looking for desks and chairs to complete her classrooms. And when she did the screening, and when she got the service charge, she was saying it was too high. And I was actually at the warehouse, and she said it was too high. And I looked at it and I'm saying it's too high too. My calculation was based on how much we were selling to the general public a truckload of furniture for. And I looked at the price that she was paying, surcharge fees, and looked at by speaking with the sales contracting officer at the site. And I'm saying to myself, you could get 2 truckloads for what you're going to pay the service charge. So I told her to, what I would do, decline the transfer. You don't want it. Go talk to our sales contracting officer to see if you can buy a truckload. She ended up buying a truckload because the service charge was too high. And by purchasing the truckload, it was her property. She can do what she wants to do with it, So those are some of the things that I've experienced over the years. I've seen where a person may get a vehicle and it's based on the description. The owning agency failed to report that the vehicle has problem with the transmission and the brakes, and there was leaking oil. So when the donee got it, there was a certain amount of dollars that person was required to get the vehicle operable. So they were able to negotiate down the service fee. Because as Charles mentioned, the service charge is based generally on 2 things: what the state agency have in their state plan, and based on the original purchase price, in which we call acquisition price. The next one, Charles. Next slide. So these are just pictures of some of the items that were donated in the past. Now you see this fire truck here. I'm sure this is it's the after picture probably, because we do have some great stories that when people get stuff, the before and after pictures that they share with us. It's outstanding what they would do with surplus items that they receive. I'm sure these musical instruments were in good condition when they got them. Next slide. So I'm going to hand this back over to Charles. As he mentioned, he will go over the Memorandum of Agreements that most agencies are signing with the veterans to transfer property to veterans-owned small businesses. Back to you, Charles.
All right, thank you, Rick. And I don't think there are any more questions right now in the chat box or the Q&A box. So thanks again. I'd like to highlight the Memorandum of Agreement. And again, the agreement is with GSA, SBA, and each of the state agencies for surplus property. And there's responsibilities that SBA has, it's responsibilities that GSA has, as well as the state agency. And there's also responsibilities in that agreement that the small business, the veteran-owned small business has. So what I'm going to do is just give you an overview of the Memorandum of Agreement. And again, the agreement is between SBA, GSA, and the State Agency for Surplus Property. But there are, like I said, there are some points that are important to your organizations that you'll have to abide by if you plan to receive property in accordance with the federal regulations. So again, the purpose, as you can see here, is to set forth the terms and conditions with respect to the federal surplus personal property, which is transferred to your type of organizations, your veteran-owned small businesses. And again, as we mentioned a little earlier, the authority is based on the Veterans Small Business Enhancement Act. And that was back in 2018, that eligible veteran-owned small businesses may receive federal surplus in accordance with the US Code, as you can see listed here, as well as the Code of Federal Regulations. And also keep in mind that you must be, in order to receive this property, you must be certified by the VA's Vets First Verification Program. And I've listed the website that you need to go to regarding that verification program. So in addition to that Veterans Small Business Enhancement Act, you must also be certified by the VA's Vets First Verification Program. So there are several conditions of use. I pulled out the ones that are applicable to the veteran-owned small businesses, and there are about 10 of them. I'll go through them real quickly here. And these are the main ones that you have to be aware of. And so if you want to receive federal property, you must first, and I'll talk about this a little later, but you must first become an eligible donee through the State Agency for Surplus Property. And so they'll also talk about these different conditions of use. It says here that the veteran-owned small business may obtain federal property from the State Agency for Surplus Property in the state where the property will be primarily located and placed in use. And these are the provisions. The first one here, and you'll agree to these in writing, is that the small business is located and operated within the state. When we originally heard about this opportunity to talk about this program, we thought it was just the state of Maryland. And so I used the, as a template, the State of Maryland Agreement, MOA. But certainly there are most of the states in the country have an agreement of this type. I know there was at least 48. I don't know if all of the states have an agreement between SBA, GSA, and the state agencies for this program, but most of the states do have an agreement in place. So again, the first condition of use is that the property is located and operated within the state. The second has to do with the small business is unconditionally owned and controlled by one or more eligible veterans, service disabled vets, or surviving spouses. Number three, again, as I mentioned earlier, that you have registered and you are in a verified status in the VA's Vets First Verification Program database. And I just gave you the website address for that.
Charles, can I ask, as you go to the next slide?
Sure.
You mentioned 48 states, and is there a way or a site they can go to? Is it GSA's site to find out, where your state, if your state participates, and if they do, who you should get in touch with? Is there a database for that?
Yes, there is, and we can share that with you after this presentation. I can make sure to get that to you. I would say you can go to gsa.gov/property and click on the federal donation program, but it may not list this specific program there. So I want to make sure you have that. So I'll make sure I send that to you after this training, so you have it to share.
Thank you.
And Charles, I just want to add, when I do the live demonstration on how to search for property, I will show them as well a link to find out the state representative in their state.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
So the fourth condition of use is that it will be used, the property acquired will be used in normal conduct of your business activity. Please keep in mind that personal or non-business use is prohibited. 5, that you will not sell, transfer, loan, lease, encumber, or otherwise dispose of the property during the period of restriction. And that usually that period is, for most property, is 12 months. You have 12 months to put it into use, and you have 12 months primarily to have it, use it, for 12 months straight. Unless you have some type of express written authorization from the GSA, SBA, and the state agency. And that's also pursuant to the federal regulations, as you can see here, 102-37. So again, during that period of restriction, you just can't use it for anything. You have to make sure you use it in accordance with the federal regulations. Number 6, that it will be obtained, that you will obtain permission from the donating state agency before permanently removing the property from the state. So again, you can't remove it out of the state unless you have permission from the state agency for surplus property. And then the citation there is indicated there, and the federal regulation citation is indicated there. Condition number 7, that it will use the property as intended within 1 year of receipt. Again, you have 1 year to put it into use, and then in most cases you have to use it for a period of 12 months before title passes. Number 8, that it will maintain its eligibility with the VA under the procedures found in Code of Federal Regulations 74, and with the state agency for surplus property for the duration of the applicable federal period of restriction for donated property. So again, you have to maintain your eligibility. Usually, in some cases, eligibility expires after 3 years. So I believe there's a regulation whereby you have to update your eligibility, every so many years, usually that number of
Charles froze.
GSA.
There you go.
Yes,
Yeah.
question?
No, you
Froze a bit there, Charles.
Oh,
But we
okay.
can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. My internet, I guess, is acting up. So yeah, number 9 is that it will give SBA, GSA, and the state agency access, as Rick mentioned earlier, to inspect the property and all records pertaining to it. So that's doing its compliance checks, compliance reviews, if you will. Again, we want to make sure you're using the property for what its intended purpose is. And so that condition is that you'll give us access to inspect that property and all records pertaining to it. And the last condition that I wanted to point out has to do with the fact, and we mentioned this a little earlier, that if you violate any of the above information or conditions that we mentioned, that you will be required to return the property at your expense. If you've sold it without our permission or transferred it or otherwise disposed of the property in violation of the agreement, that you'll be liable to the federal government for the fair market value as determined by GSA or the state agency for surplus property, or the sale price of the property, whichever is greater. So again, make sure if you become an eligible donee, make sure you're aware of these conditions. So you know, we want to make sure you don't violate or become non-compliant. Otherwise, the relationship kind of changes there. So we don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure you know about these conditions ahead of time.
There was a question in the chat box, or in the question, Q&A, I'm sorry. Is there a projected coming soon list of property? Like, you know, is there any way to kind of anticipate what's around the corner in terms of items?
Sure, I would say we update our inventory on a daily basis. So
really,
I would say, you know, you want to look at this when Rick gives this demo of our site. I would say you want to check on it, you know, however often you can. You know, I won't say you need to check on it daily, but certainly you need to check that inventory on a regular basis because our inventory is updated, you know, on a pretty frequent basis. So that's how I would answer that question. Was there another question in the chat box? I see.
Nope, we're up to date on answering the
Okay.
Q&A. So Rick's
All right.
going to walk us through.
So yes, again,
Yes.
before we get to the demo, again, you know, you want to find out who your state representative is or your state agency for surplus property is. And Rick is going to show you how you can access that. As I mentioned, you can go to gsa.gov/property to get to our site, our property site. And then there's a link there about the federal donation program. And then there's another link there to the various states. And Rick is going to show you that momentarily. You can also go to this National State Agency for Surplus Property.org site. And that's another way you can find out, you know, who your point of contact is in your state. You would choose my state, click on the appropriate state, and then you can contact that point of contact, the state representative, for more information or to find out how you can apply for eligibility. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Rick to give you a quick demo of our surplus, or actually not just our surplus property, but our excess and surplus personal property site called GSA Excess with an X. Rick? Oh, let me go back. Let me click on that for you. Still with us, Rick?
Can you stop sharing so I can share my screen?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I have it, you know, I have it ready to go.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let me stop sharing here.
Okay, so let me share my screen real quick. I'll try to take my time going through this. Can you all see my screen?
It looks great. I can see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first thing is the first thing, most important piece. How do you contact your state? So I just clicked on the blue banner. You don't have to sign in. You just click on contact links. You go to state agencies for surplus property. And you just click on your state. For example, if you're in North Carolina, here's your point of contact. So you contact them, ask for an application, tell them who you are, tell them that you are a eligible participant in the Veterans Program, and they can send you an application. Most of the eligibility applications are the same throughout the country now. I think we all went to one general application. So it's basically the application is broken down by category. You will fall under the Veterans Small Business category. Click the box. They may ask you for a narrative, and kind of a want list of the items you may be looking for. And once you submit it, the state agency representative will review it and give you authority. Now, you may have to ask the state agency to give you a temporary user ID and a password to go into view only. The only thing that you'll be able to do is view only. So once you get that information, you'll be able to log in. I'm logging in the GSA ways, which I have a lot of shortcuts. So I'm just going to log in. I'm going to click on my user ID. I'm in. So if you can see all the different categories here. Okay. Say, for example, if you're looking for fire trucks and firefighting equipment, you see that for this, at this time, this is live, there's 92 line items of fire trucks and firefighting equipment, 38 with pictures. So if I click on here, and let's say, because you always should try to find property close to you because you have to pay the transportation cost. Let's say North Carolina again. I want to see if I can find anything in the state of North Carolina. So I click on North Carolina, and I see that what they have is some respirators, some metallic hoses, and these fall under the category of firefighting equipment. And if you look across here, the item control number, if you click on it, it'll give you more data. For example, if I click on this one here, it's going to show me more description, item location, anything where you see a DLA, it's a DOD facility, the point of contact, the property custodian. In some cases, I have to say some cases, if you call the property custodian, give them the item control number, they may be able to give you more information. We ask that agencies include pictures of items when they report it, so make it easier for you to make a educated selection with better descriptions and pictures. So I'm just going.
While you're on that, I was going to ask you,
Sure.
there was like a $1,200, it showed there.
Okay, so
total acquisition cost and then original unit. How much?
The total
would be the service cost?
acquisition cost is in this case, say 1022. Based on the state agency state plan, it could be 0 to 25% for most states, I believe.
For the service? The service
fee, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 0 to 25%.
So it depends that they may charge you nothing or up to 25% of that. Gotcha. So it could be, let's say, $250
It could
at the
be
most.
at the most, yes.
Okay, just to kind of give an idea. Okay.
Yeah,
it could be $50. They get to
It could be
decide.
50. It could be, in this case, these items are what I guess it's consumables. Folks going to use them and throw them in the trash. They could say, if you want them, we're not going to charge you anything.
Yeah, we just need to get them out of the warehouse. You can have them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of PPE equipment that's going to be reported soon. So if you see, let me just go back. You see the different categories. Someone asked a question about, is there a list? There's always a list. As you can see here, this is a live report. There's 18,000 line items, 2,400 with pictures.
And you can search, and I can see there's like a search thing. So
you can search. You also can do an advanced search if you know the right now name. Once you get familiar with how to search, you could use what we call, and some folks who may have some military background may be familiar with federal stop group and classes. You can search by, like I know, because I've been around a while. If I'm looking for a vehicle, I type in a passenger vehicle. I type in 2310. I'm gonna leave that blank because I want to search the whole country for the item. And if I hit search, I got 32 records. And as you can see, there's a passenger, passenger van. There's 2 people competing for it. It's
only
located.
2. Wow.
Two
not
organizations.
Bad.
That's not bad.
Not bad.
But these organizations now, look at this surplus release date, March 5th. And I can almost bet you that these are state agencies competing for this. Because if I click on here and view requests, and I see, looking at these numbers here, the state of Florida is competing for it, and the state of South Carolina.
Okay.
Okay. So that means that, because if a federal wanted, it'll be gone, because we could allocate the same day they put in for it. The acquisition value is 70,000. And manufacture date 2006, but you know, used vehicles are going pretty high these days. So what's going to happen after the 5th, after the screening ends, after the 5th, GSA is going to allocate it to either South Carolina or Florida, and it's going to be based on some historical records, based on the size of the state and the per capita income. All those factors are going to take place. Now, unless Florida sends something in and they have an urgent need for it, then GSA may allocate it to Florida. You know, they may set a justification in. So we really need this van.
So if you can't beat a state or federal, so the order of, goes federal, obviously state, and then nonprofits and
No,
business.
actually, the way it works is that the 2 states that I show you are state agencies. The State Agency for Surplus Property Program for that state, South Carolina and Florida. They are actually trying to acquire this van for one of their donees, one of their nonprofits, one of their eligible small business or veteran-owned organizations.
So they're trying to acquire for them.
Yes, because what happens is, as I mentioned earlier, you could only get a request to screen only. So, for example, if one of the organizations on the call now was eligible, what they would have to do is, I went in this morning, I saw this van. Here's the item. This is the most important item on here. Number on here, the item control number. I saw this van, item control number 1546532041001E1. You contact your state agency and say, hey, I saw this van on the system. Can you put in a request for it for me? So what they would do, they would go, the state would go in, they would add this item to their cart, and then they would check out. And if there's any priority situation for this item in your cart, if it's no, it's no. If it's yes, it's yes. Let's say, for example, it's yes. And then you would have to list the state would have to list the priority. You know, it could be hurricane related. One of these things. These are national disaster that you see listed. So you would choose one.
Those are declarations.
Yeah, decorations. Yes, decorations.
There was a question. Are you allowed to send a mechanic to view a vehicle before transporting it, or the service fees, or
yes, you can. Yeah, I mean, you could let the state agency know, hey, I would like to, go out there and take a look at it. Or you could call the property. You'll call the property custodian and say, hey, do you have any vehicle maintenance records, for that particular vehicle? Talk to the property custodian. They may tell you, hey, this guy could be taking a photography class. I'm gonna take great pictures. I'm not gonna show the damaged side of the vehicle. I was just,
or my teenage kid. Your car looks fine.
yeah. So you have to ask those questions before acquiring the vehicle. Yeah, you have to definitely ask those questions. So
there was a question here about pecking order, but I think you answered it, and I just want to make sure we all understand that the state actually puts in the request on behalf of their constituents, basically.
Yes. Okay. So if you're given authority or a temporary password to go on the screen, you have to find the item, provide them with the item control number, and tell them that you're interested in that particular.
And they act on your behalf.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike,
you may be required. You may be required to pick it up.
Oh yeah, but they put in actually the what you would call a bid. In this case, they put in.
Let's not use the term. Put in a request.
Put in a request. They put in a request.
Don't put a bid because you're not buying it. You're not competing to purchase it. You're just competing to try to acquire it. So it won't be a bid. It'll be a request.
And then there's a question, because this comes up. What how is the decision made on surplus property for free, with a service fee versus auction or sale?
Well,
How would
see,
a business, how would a
auction is different. We have a site,
okay, auction is different.
GSA auctions.gov.
Okay, that's different.
You register just like any citizen of the United States, or
Oh, gotcha.
anybody. It's worldwide, so anybody can register and bid on it.
Okay, but
So
this is special here.
This
Okay.
is a program that has terms and condition, and it's surplus federal owned property that is first transferred to the state agency. They in turn donate it to an eligible organization within their state, and there's terms and condition that apply when receiving the property.
Now, I thought there were sometimes buildings as part of this in terms of leasing, like that are unused buildings.
There are buildings, but we deal with personal property, things that goes into a building. There's a whole different conversation about buildings, and that would be through our real property group. I can make a note to send you a link for that.
Yeah, I think I had a VIP take advantage of a warehouse that wasn't being used.
Yes.
Just on a loan base, like he didn't want to buy it, but he got to use it.
That would be the real property team that would have to.
Okay. Similar. I mean, he had to.
Yes, it could be similar. The process could be similar, where they have to go through private state agency and sign some type of agreement. Yeah. I don't know if they charge you to.
I didn't get into the details, but it's good to know it's still through this. If you could send us information on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll check with real property. Yeah.
Now it's 3:02. I don't know how much more we had booked this.
Well, let me show you this real quick.
Okay.
And then what I would do, I mean, and if any follow-up questions, you can send us through an email.
Okay, great.
So every day, my team, because we're actually going into the system and try to highlight items, send out to people to see if they can use it. So you got just your options here. So the category that you will be looking at would be newly reported items by category, by state. Newly reported items by state. Basically, these items just hit the system either late last night or early this morning, and you will see items that had just been added to the system. Wow. If you look at DC, there's 332 new items. State of Florida's got 40 new items added, 20 with pictures. Georgia have 1. This is just for, I would say, after 7 p.m. last night up to current time now, because folks could actually be adding items in the system right now, and this count is probably will change. So there was 543 items added and 103, and again, it's listed by state.
And those by state. So this is where I want to make sure I understand. So I'm looking at Colorado. They have 2 and 2. What's that first number 2 mean?
The 2 is the line items. The second line items with pictures. So if you look at Colorado, you got 2 line items, 2 with pictures.
So that means they have 2 requests.
No, it's not 2 requests. 2 new available items added to the system.
Oh, for their constituents in Colorado.
No. It's for everyone. It's for the federal community, state community. These are 2 line items that they can actually go in and compete for.
Oh, okay.
As the most important day here is this. This is the end of the screening for federal agencies. March 9th, surplus release date. This is the time that we can allocate the property to state agencies and state agencies after this surplus release date. You got it? So when you look at newly reported items or newly reported items by category, it's saying that this data has just been put in the system. But the end of the screening period is called a surplus release date. And that property now is eligible for state agencies, so we can complete the allocation, we can approve the transfer documents. So when you first log into the system, you'll see all the different categories. This is what currently is available. Currently available is 18,000 line items. And of those 18,000 line items, 2,400 of those line items have pictures. All this property is currently available for anyone to request. There's 32 vehicles, 32 line items of automobiles, 24 with pictures. If you look at the surplus release date, we have some that's going to end Saturday, some ending next week, some ending some next week, some ending next week. You see that some people are competing for it. In this column over here, requested I quantity. People are competing for it. You have and for this particular van, you got one van available, 3 folks competing for it. If I click on the item control number and view requests and look at this, you have 1 federal. If you see a 99, actually 2 federal. There's a 99, a 99. Anything with a 99, that means a federal would put in for it. So the GSA person responsible for this particular geographical location, likely they're going to allocate it. They should allocate it within 2 days, but they're probably going to allocate it tomorrow.
Well,
Any questions?
well, that's really helpful, like you said, to kind of, if you see a 99, then, in terms of the pecking order,
Yeah,
move
99
on.
means a federal. If you see anything less than a 99, it's probably a state agency is competing for it.
Yeah, it's fair game then. You just have to
Yeah,
let
fair
your
game.
state agency
And
know
then
that-
usually when you look at who's competing for it, you see in the state column, WA, state of Washington is competing for it.
Yeah,
And
that's-
likely they won't get it. One of these, either Bureau of Indian Affairs is going to get it, or the National Institute of Food and Agriculture is going to get it because they're federal. And the surplus release date, the date requested was 2/16.
That's
And
today.
if
Yeah.
I go back, the surplus release date is March 8th. So likely a Fed is going to take this vehicle.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
But it's
likely.
good to know.
Yeah.
Well, this is,
So what we are, and I'm sure the other property folks, GSA property folks throughout the country, once a person become eligible and if they get their authorization to screen, feel free to reach out to us to, if you have any questions, because again, with the contact links, if your organization is in Georgia, our customer service representative call area property officers. Same thing if you click on the state. For example, if we click on, we're dealing with North Carolina, so let's stay with North Carolina. Hit go. And these are your GSA reps that can assist you with property in North
so that's
Carolina.
basically your customer service. So there's a question in the, that's who you
Customer
want to call.
service people are
You want to call
called
Ferris Allen. Yep.
area property officers. Those are customer service reps.
There you
for
go.
Property.
That was easy enough.
Yep.
And of course, if they get lost, they have your contact information. Rick and
Always feel
Charles.
free to reach out to me and Charles. We're here to support, answer your questions. Again, we rather see it donated, transferred, donated, rather than sold or recycled.
Sitting in a warehouse doesn't do anybody any good.
Nope, it doesn't.
No. Oh, well, thank you. This is terrific. And my goodness, the scope of equipment and products and even knowing that, there are buildings out there, go to the GSA facilities piece and, take a look, but it's certainly worth, taking a look first before you go out and buy it new, for goodness sakes. And I want to thank you both for taking the time to share this information with VIP and the veterans it serves. We're always looking to connect the community we serve with resources that will help them grow their businesses and their communities. And certainly this is a tremendous help. And I want to thank you for your service and helping us help those that are growing their communities. So thank you. And thank you for being a resource if they have any questions after today. And
Sure.
I think this is a great program and I want to thank you.
You're welcome. And hey, if you want to get started, we got a warehouse full of furniture.
Oh, I love it.
You
It's
need
great.
a desk and a chair, a file cabinet, we got it. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
but
you.
y'all
Thank
have
you.
a great day. Be well. Thank you.
You
Yep,
too.
thank you for having us. Have a great day.
Thank you. And we will be sharing these slides with everyone.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.